Grab your soda cans. And let's build a Spanish Galleon. First, trace and cut out the hull. Next, fold the hull in half as shown. Mark the position for the hull formers. The rear deck hull former will go between the third and fourth diamonds on the hull template. And the mid-deck former will need to be centered under the middle cannon port on the forward part of the hull. Now trace and cut out the hull former for the rear deck section. Reinforce the hull former with a piece of can, as shown. Fold the glue tabs in, then dab glue onto them. Glue the rear deck former into position as shown. Next, reinforce the glue tabs on the hull so the rear deck former remains securely in place. Now cut out the midship hull former. And reinforce it with a piece of can. Fold all of the hull former glue tabs in, until it looks just like ours. Mark the former position off as needed, to ensure you have the location right. Dab glue onto the former tabs, and glue into position. Now, reinforce it, like we did with the previous piece. Next, trace and cut out the stern former. Use a ruler to fold the glue tabs in. And we'll reinforce this former as well. Dab glue onto the tabs, and glue the stern former into position. And reinforce the hull, to secure the former. Next, cut out the mid-deck former. And, fold all of the glue tabs in. Reinforce the inside surface of the mid-deck former. Dab glue onto the tabs, and glue the mid-deck former into position as shown. And, reinforce the hull to secure it. Next, after cutting out the prow former, glue it into position in front of the mid-deck former. Next, cut out the rear deck former. And fold it into shape, as shown. Reinforce the inside surface. And glue the former into position, as indicated. Secure the former, by reinforcing the hull. Next, trace and cut out the main deck. Fold the piece into shape, as indicated. Now, reinforce the main deck. Next, trace and cut out the rear deck. And fold the rear deck piece into shape. Finally, reinforce the rear deck piece. Now, glue the main deck into position. Then, glue the rear deck into position. Next, trace and cut out the prow. And, fold the prow glue tabs in. Now glue the prow to the front of the hull. This will be tricky, so take your time. Next, cut out the stern piece, form it to the back of the hull, and glue it into position. At this point the main hull should be complete. You can opt for the solid color hull, like we did. It will take time, but it will really look cool when finished. Next, we'll make the display stand. You'll need to cut out the boat stand and the hull supports. Follow along as we build it. Next, we need to trace and cut out the hull supports. Make sure to cut out the diamond-shaped openings in the supports prior to folding them. Once you have the hull supports folded, glue along the glue tabs. Finally, glue the hull supports to the boat stand. Now that the stand is complete, we move on to the top rear deck and forecastle. Fold the rear deck into shape as shown. Then, reinforce the piece. Glue the rear deck into position. Now we move on to the forecastle. First, trace and cut out the piece. Then, fold it into shape. Reinforce the forecastle. And glue it into position at the front of the ship. Next we'll trace and cut out the rudder. And, reinforce it. Finally, we glue the piece onto the hull. Next, we'll complete some simple pieces like a grate, hatch, and a small boat. We glue the foam to the bottom of each piece, as shown. We make some pieces 2 foam pieces high, like this one. We glue them together, then to our cutout pieces. Then we glue them in position on the deck. Next, we start on the captain's balcony. We need to trace and cut out the rail, and 3 floor pieces. We'll use craft foam to thicken up the floor pieces, so the whole assembly sticks to the hull better. Now we reinforce the floor pieces, and we add the craft foam to each piece. Now we're ready to assemble the floor pieces. And we glue them to the balcony rail. Now, we glue the completed assembly to the hull. Finished. We'll need these dowels and skewers to make masts. First, we trace and cut out our sails. We'll need to cut out a total of 6 sails. And we'll glue each one to one of the skewers, as shown. For the sails, we're using white cans for added realism. We also use a wooden dowel to round them a bit, as well. We're also opting to use the solid color panel effect on the sails as well. Only a few more sails left. The skewers will help us mount the sails in the next step. And we glue the last sail to the skewer. Now, we need to make 3 crow's nests for our masts. To do this, we'll use just the crow's nest bottom, and the crow's nest from the templates to make all 3. We'll reinforce each of the crow's nest floor pieces, and also glue some craft foam to it to help it adhere in later steps. And here's the final assembly for one of our crow's nests. Watch as we finish the remaining crow's nests. In the next step, we'll be ready to assemble the masts and sails along with these crow's nest pieces. We'll use the mast template pieces as a guide, cut our dowels to length, and glue everything together. We'll start with the lower mast pieces and work our way up. Next, the crow's nests, followed by the upper mast pieces. Now, the foremast and the mizzen mast. Now, we're ready for some sails. Now, the bowsprit. Make sure to cut this dowel at the correct angle. Also, cut an inch off of the tip of the dowel for this mast. It will go over the sail as shown. And finally, the lateen sail. And our mast tips. And the final touches to the forecastle. Next, we install the Prow Skeg. We improvise on the templates, glue the 2 halves together. Then we'll mount it to the front of the prow. We fashion up some glue tabs for each side of the skeg. Finally, we glue the skeg to the front of the prow. Next, we fashion up some rigging to reach the crow's nests. We'll need a total of 6 of these. 4 shorter ones and 2 tall ones for the main masts. We need a pair for each of the masts. These will take a bit of time, but the effort is well worth it. These will really make your Spanish Galleon pop. Trim the edges and the first one is done. Only 5 more to go. Halfway there, let's keep going. Finally, we save the taller rigging for our main mast for last. Trim off the taller rigging, and it's finished. And the second one is done. Now we're ready to install them. Now to install the rigging on both sides of each mast. We glue each one to the side of the hull, and right under the crow's nest. Now, the main mast. And the foremast. We hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. And we hope you'll try building one yourself. Finished. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, and make sure to hit that subscribe button. See you next time.